This is an age of darkness. A world of fear, power, and death. But a few forge their destiny. Medieval total war.
Hello folks and welcome back to Medieval Total War. I am Step and this is going to be part 1 of my brand new campaign where I am playing as the Byzantines. And I just had to include that video because it is so epic and it really does set the tone for this campaign. So I really do enjoy watching that and I hope you do as well. So I just want to say a few things before I jump into this campaign. If you are new to this channel, I just want to say hello and welcome. And yes, if you're a returning viewer, if you've been watching my videos, in my previous Medieval 1 videos or my Shogun, videos going back a ways, I just want to say, thank you very much. I appreciate the support, and I do like doing this on my well, what I want to start doing actually is kind of saying like, this is my part 1, right? And this is the video that will be getting the most traction, the most views of all of my videos for each campaign is always going to be part 1. So I want to say this is the best time for me to kind of ask you guys, like, how's it going? That's why I say hi. And if you guys want to like talk about anything that's going on and just kind of say what's up, this is really exciting for me because the part 1 of the videos is always a chance for me to get the most interaction. And, we really hear back from a lot of you. So I want to encourage that. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from all of you and just hearing about how things are going. And if you're playing any campaigns in either of these games, in Medieval 1 or Shogun 1, I love to, hear about your stories and your experiences and whatnot, or anything, just talk about whatever you want. In any case, I will be going into this campaign playing as the Byzantines. For those of you who aren't newer to this channel, my experience with these games is that I am playing the Total War games through, in order, right? And I'm playing them essentially without any nostalgia experience. I didn't play these games growing up. I found them on YouTube. These are essentially my hangover cures. I'd be watching Total War stuff on YouTube, and I was watching Heir of Carthage and Legend of Total War in turn, but there was no one playing any of these games, the Shogun 1 and Medieval 1. And so I decided that was going to be me, and that's why I started this channel. So I essentially celebrate the 20th anniversary of each of these games, and I will be moving on into Rome 1 at some point as well, celebrate the 20th anniversary of that game as well. But for now, I am celebrating, Medieval 1, and I want to celebrate these games not by just playing one campaign and calling it good. I really like to dive in and try to learn the ins and outs and the real, the emotions of the game, the real feeling of the game. And before I go any further, I should probably give you a warning, again, if you are new to this channel. If you are looking for someone to dive right on into this campaign, you might want just to skip ahead to the part 2 because there is likely going to be very little game action in this part 1. So I just want to say that actually maybe I should turn down the volume a little bit. I always feel like it's a little bit too loud when I'm trying to make these introductions here. Let's do. Gotta have 25. There we go. And as I was saying, I don't want to waste your time. If you don't want to sit through someone reading through the descriptions of things and talking really in depth about build orders and unit strategies and overall campaign strategies, and then just like watch me play one turn essentially, I do recommend you just to skip ahead to part 2. Because I don't want you to sit through 5 minutes before you realize In fact, I just realized this video's already been 5 minutes. But yeah, I don't want to waste your time. So that's that. Moving on. Let's just dive in now. Single player and new campaign. I do play my campaigns on expert. Fun fact. So going back to what I was saying about this being my way of experiencing these games. However, with that being said, I do like to have a bit of practice going into these campaigns so that I'm not just, wandering around blind. This isn't a React channel. I'm trying to teach a little bit. I'm trying to teach you a little bit of what I know. So, which isn't, too much, but I know a little some. And with that being said, feel free to correct me or fill in the blanks. A lot of the information that I've gathered playing this game has been either through playing this game or by going on the forums and reading through the archives that are 20 years old. So there's a lot of blanks. These older games didn't do a really good job of conveying information. So a lot of this is still me fumbling around a bit. By this point in time, once I've had this much time into Shogun, I pretty much had it all figured out, I felt like. I mean, kind of. With this game, with Medieval, there's still a lot left that's kind of fudgy with me knowing things. So feel free to stick around and correct me if I'm wrong about certain things. So diving on in, early period is what I've been playing for now. I do intend to play the high periods and the late periods at some point, but I do want to finish all of the earlier period. In addition to that, I do like playing as the Glorious Achievements modes because it offers more freedom, in my opinion. Since I do intend on playing a lot of these campaigns, I don't want to just play map conquest over and over and over again because that does feel like a bit of a slog. And I feel like that would just get really tedious and boring, for me at least. That's not to say that Glorious Achievements mode isn't long in its own right. It is. And in general, coming from Shogun 1 to this game, that has been kind of the experience, right? It's like, this is a bigger game, much, much bigger. It's kind of refreshing to go back to Shogun and see how much faster it plays. But I think that for this game, it's good, at least for me, this is my opinion, but it's good to dive into that bigness. How epic it is and how long it takes to really plan a long-term engagement with an enemy, right? Or really plan your alliances and your trade and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot to consider, and I really do enjoy that. I really like that long-term planning, and I like that this game mode, Glorious Achievements, does not require me to expand out. I mean, it does a little bit, but it doesn't make me take over the entire map. With that being said, if I do need to knock out another faction that has accrued more points than me and they are on the other side of the map, I will go and kill them. That is what I've been doing in my past campaigns. So there is a little bit of world exploring. It's not like I'm just sitting in my corner. There's a bit of that as well, but it's not, it's not the whole thing. Now, with this early period background information, these are actually quite long, and I have read these for my Elma Heads campaign and my Aragon campaign. I can scroll down and you can pause the video if you would like to read it. But if you want me to read this to you, I suggest you go to those campaigns and you go through that, because this is, as you can see, it's a lot of information here. And it's good information. It really does go into the setting of these the early period, the early Middle Ages. So it's really interesting stuff, but again, it's just really long-winded, I'd say. And I'm already long-winded enough, so let's finish off this, get to the end here, and that's going to be that. Early period, continue. And for the Byzantines, I will read their information, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to skip that last part, because this also is quite long. So it goes to the starting units. I'm not going to talk about this stuff here because I can talk about this stuff once I get into the campaign itself. Faction difficulty rating, fairly easy, I would agree with that. Fun fact, my first campaign that I played on expert difficulty, I did play as the Byzantines, and I was able to figure it out. I was able to kind of do okay. I did use a different strategy that I'm intending to use in this campaign, so there's going to be a little bit of an unknown factor here for sure. But all in all, I will say that it is fairly easy, but it is also a little bit tricky in some ways. It's a big faction, you know. It's a lot bigger than the other factions that I have played. Well, the Alma Heads had a lot of territory, but the the Aragonese just started off with one province. So this is going to be much different than that start. Going on into this, playing Byzantine Empire is slightly easier for any given difficulty setting than most other factions in the game. In the earlier period of the game, the Byzantine Empire is in its strongest position, and in later starting periods, the overall situation will never again be as favorable for a Byzantine commander. The empire is large, owns potentially rich lands, and has other sources of wealth close by. The empire can soon develop a strong economy in Constantinople, but its military forces are thinly spread and training facilities are completely centralized and therefore slow to create a large number of military units. The empire can afford to create a strong army, but this can take time that may not be available. All that said, the Byzantine army has access to more exclusive units than any other Christian kingdom, including the supremely heavy cataphractoi cavalry. Any Byzantine commander must also give serious consideration to developing a taste for bribery, espionage, and murder if the military options are not ruthlessly pursued. The Byzantine Empire is the child of the Roman Empire, or rather the Greek-speaking eastern half of the Roman Empire. It has always been a power in the world, ruled by despots and assassins, fools and wise men, poets and generals, all combining religious and political authority in one man. That it has survived and even prospered is a tribute to its underlying strengths and the luck of the empire's position at the crossroads of the world. Almost no trade moves east or west without making Byzantium richer and filling the emperor's coffers with taxes. This wealth and the heavy tolls needed to sustain the imperial court can be a cause of envy and resentment from other peoples. Constantinople, or Byzantium, was founded as the second Rome by Constantine the Great, and is the greatest city in Europe and may be the greatest in the world. Its walls are impregnable, its armies fearsome, its people impossibly wealthy and cultured. Byzantine coinage effortlessly dominates the world of trade and can be used to buy goods the world over. In matters of religion, the Byzantine patriarchs are unwilling to recognize the papacy's claimed superior status, as the schism between the Orthodox and Catholic halves of Christianity goes unhealed. Byzantium, however, does face problems, yet within those problems could be opportunities for further greatness. The empire has had a measure of security thanks to the skills of its mercenary armies, and has held onto many of its ancient frontiers even in the face of Islamic expansion. Now, while the troops remain as good as ever, a new threat has arisen in the east. A good emperor will need to concentrate much of its military might, including the fearsome cataphractoi, against the emerging threat of the Seljuk Turks. At the same time, you must also be aware of other opportunities: the Balkans, the Holy Land, and North Africa. A maritime strategy controlling the Mediterranean can pay dividends. Finding common cause with one of the Catholic princes of the West is also, for example, a viable strategy, as neither side will necessarily want to eventually conquer the same territory, and an emperor who can harness the power of Western crusaders can also profit from their work in weakening his enemies. Really calling on some Alexios Komnenos. Is this him right here? I guess it would make sense. Emperor Alexios I? This is the time of him, right? By the way, my history is very shoddy. Very, very shoddy. For those of you who are not American, the rumors that you have heard about the American public school system is true. We don't know much about much. And in fact, I didn't learn that the Byzantines were Romans until somewhat recently. So yeah, that might come as a shock to you, but yeah, that's the truth. So yeah, so yes, those of you who are American, the Byzantines are the Romans of the Middle Ages. Pretty neat stuff. So I think we're ready to start this campaign. Here we are in the campaign, and before we do anything else, we have a flashing red button here. This is the Glorious Achievements tab, and this is what's going to be counting the points for this campaign. And as you can see right here, there's two different ways I can gain points currently. Now this can change. Homelands and Conquest will always be here, but this also changes. I mean, the exact points that I can make changes. So, for example, homelands, I'm making 4 points off of Constantinople, and then 1 point for each of these territories that I all hold. You can tell that I hold these territories already because they are green. For any territories here that I'm not already holding, it will be grayed out, and that means that's a territory that I should make an effort to take so that I can make points off of that territory. That's homelands. That's going to change throughout this campaign. Right now I'm making 8 plus 7, so 15 points off of homelands alone. That's okay. That's not bad. That's not the best. I think the Alma Heads do make more. The Alma Heads also have a pretty decent homelands objectives. But 17 is not bad. Conquest. This is based on, me taking more territories. So for every 4 provinces conquered, I score 1 point. This is different per each faction. Some factions can make 1 point per each territory they conquer. Those factions can be scary. Hungary and Poland, I believe, are both factions that can make points like that. In fact, I can look at this, I believe. Which is pretty cool. Yep, Poland. For every 1 province they conquer, they score 1 point. That can be scary. Hungary, I believe, is the same. Yes, it is. And yeah, anyway, that's that. There will be more goals that are added to this. There's like some specific little quests that can be added, so that's pretty neat stuff as well. And then these dates up here are the dates. These are the counting periods in which these points are counted. So in 13 years, the year's 1087 right now. This is essentially, again, speaking to the Americans in the crowd, the Americans that don't know their history. See, I say this stuff. I know that if you found this channel, you probably already know this stuff, but for the couple of you that don't, I will talk as if you don't know this stuff, okay? So forgive me. This is around the time that the First Crusades did start. So, and the Byzantines actually did have a lot to do with that. They really did kind of work hand in hand with Pope. Oh crap, Pope. There's a second something that's. Oh Jesus, I shouldn't have even tried. Urban the second, right? Yes, I know some shit. Oh God. Yeah, they worked really closely with the Pope to try to, figure out a way to get these Western armies, these Western knights, which they had seen. They were so powerful because they had to fight against Normans at one point. They're like, holy shit, these guys are good. How do we get them to fight for us? And they figured it out. So this is right around the time that the First Crusades did start. This map is not quite what I envisioned it for this time period. I believe that the Turks probably, well, the Turks are a little bit spread out, but I believe like it was the Sultanate of Rum, was it? And I think that they had most of Anatolia, not just like this little sliver here, but most of this was lost by this period, is my understanding. And the Byzantines were essentially pushed back to Constantinople on this side. And that's what really kind of stressed them out. They're like, holy shit. Oh God, they're right there. They're right there. And yeah, that's when they decided they needed some crusades to really help them out there. So yeah, so let's see. Is there anything else to say about the points? I guess not, but this is something that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on to make sure that I stay ahead of the other factions, right? So we have the Turks right here, and then we have the Egyptians right here. So 2 Muslim factions that I will be fighting off against. And in my initial campaign where I played as the Byzantines on expert difficulty, I decided to take a very defensive approach and just play the objectives and see if I could win that way. And what that meant was not going on the offensive at all against these factions. Now that worked. It's possible. It is possible to play that way. It's not the most fluid. It's a little bit awkward. They do attack often. The Turks and the Egyptians really do attack often. Now there is a way that it's possible to hold this 1, 2, 3, 4 province frontier with only 2 armies. For those of you who are not familiar with these games, these older games, Medieval 1 and Shogun 1, it's called a satellite defense. At least it was called a satellite defense in the Shogun 1 official strategy guide, which is that you can essentially guard multiple provinces with only using a few armies. The way that you do that is you essentially have basic level, at least a tier 1 castle in each of these provinces, specifically the provinces that you won't be stationing your armies in. In this case, it would be Lesser Armenia and Georgia. So once I have a castle in these provinces, then all I need is a unit of peasants to hold and garrison that castle. If these provinces are ever attacked, which they would be because there would essentially would be no standing army there, simply all I have to do is leave either Anatolia or Trebizond with my main armies that are holding these provinces and go out and rescue that garrison that was holding into the castles in either Lesser Armenia or Georgia up here. Of course, eventually you're going to want castles in these provinces as well so that you can leave behind a peasant in these provinces just in case while you're gone, either these provinces are attacked from Rum. But you can just go back and forth like that, and you can use that strategy to hold a four province frontier with only 2 armies. This isn't the best example either. Based on the geography of the map, there's places where you can hold 3 or 4 provinces with only 1 army. If that one province, that home province, is bordering all 3 or 4 frontier provinces. So in any case, that's just how that works. It's possible. I believe in that campaign, every time I did this, the Turks did retreat. I never once fought a single battle with the Turks in that campaign. The Egyptians actually were able to build up a couple of times and fight battles that they felt confident enough in. I believe I killed their Sultan in every case, and that didn't do well for that. Is it a Sultan or Khalifa? I can't never remember. I can't remember. Yeah, Sultan or Khalifa. Khalifa. It has to be Khalifa, right? In any case, I was able to hold this frontier, and I was thinking I would leave these Muslim factions essentially as a buffer between me and the Mongols. I discovered that the Mongols popped into Khazar, and then I was just shielding the Muslim factions by holding Georgia through multiple battles. It felt really dumb. It worked. I held Georgia. It was cool. It was a fun campaign. I learned some things. And while I am tempted to play this campaign the exact same way, there's more of a meta to this campaign, more of a meta strategy that unfortunately I haven't been able to completely test out. I've kind of played the first few turns of this campaign multiple times to see how it plays, but I've never fully played out this entire opening that I'm about to play out in this campaign. So this is a little bit untested for me, but I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do here, so hopefully I can pull that off. The idea is going to be blitzing the Turks. Now the Turks are landlocked. They started the campaign with no borders bordering the ocean or the sea, so they stay poor unless they can get some ports so that they can trade. They will be poor for a while, and that's why they never were able to actually attack me in that campaign that I played. So what I can do, Rum is essentially their quote-unquote capital. Capitals don't really mean anything in this game or Shogun 1. It's just a place that you start off with that has a castle and buildings that you can recruit stuff in. That's it. Losing it doesn't lose you the game or anything like that. But what I can do is attack Rum, and by attacking Rum, that gets rid of the Turks' abilities to train any more units. Then after attacking Rum, I believe what I can do is blitz down. See, yeah, and then the question is like, do I do Armenia, Edessa, Syria? And then once I think that's all they have. I think they just have Rum, Armenia, Edessa, and then Syria. And I think that Egypt holds the rest of this. What I can do from there, though, is that if I can take Tripoli off of the Egyptians, I can essentially trap the Egyptian Sultan inside of Antioch, and if by capturing him, I can ransom him back to the Egyptians for 10,000 florins, and that's a very, very strong opening for the Byzantines, and that's what I intend to do. That does involve a little bit of a blitz here against the Turks, a blitz that probably should have been practiced by me. But again, I'm relatively confident in being able to pull this off, I think. So let's see, what do I have? Should I bring, so see, right after I say that, I'm like, all right, so what do I attack with? Okay, before I even do that though, there's also a few conversations. See, this is I've been looking at this whole time. I have more. I have islands here, Cyprus, Rhodes, and Crete, and then I also have Naples. Now, right now I'm only making 1 point off of Naples. However, I think fairly soon I will be making like 3 points off of Naples. Naples is a place that I do want to keep, actually. I do. It's easy to say like, hey, just let it go, rebel. Like, fuck it. You're not gonna be able to hold it. But I really want to try to hold it. So first things first, lower taxes to very low. Now loyalty is at 70%. That's progress, but that's not going to be good enough. What I can do at this point is try to find a governor that has the most dread in in this game that I have. So again, for those of you who are new, the way that these captains work, each unit has a unit captain. So it's not just my Byzantine infantry, it's also my naphtha thrower, also as a captain. In fact, the fact that my Byzantine infantryman only has 1 loyalty is really bad. That means I should probably give him a title just to give him more loyalty. Yeah, that's not good at all. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Man, I was... Of course, it's in the province that, like, I can't... Because they're trapped here until I can get a port. Once I can get a port and some boats in the water, and then I can connect to Naples with the rest of my kingdom. But for now, Naples is on its own. And the fact that my commander of this army is 1 loyalty, this man is likely to be the cause of many of your problems, both at home and abroad. Remove him, and you'll probably solve many of your rebellion difficulties. Oh, God. See, I can't disband him, though, because I need him. This is a 100-man infantry unit that is doing a lot to maintain the loyalty in this province. Oh, God, that sucks. Okay, so how do I get around this? Going back to this, I can talk a little bit more about... Okay, so loyalty is that. Piety is how much support a religious population will offer this man. So if we look into here, zeal is at 57%. And what this has to do with my understanding of this, and this is where you can kind of fill in the blanks where I'm wrong on this, but this is my understanding of how piety and zeal and religion work. In places where you have the majority of the populace that are following your faction's religion, in this case, I'm Orthodox Christian. Naples is not Orthodox, it is Catholic. That's what this cross is. It's 94% Catholic, and it's 6% heretical cults. There's no Orthodox presence here in Naples. So what does that mean? Naples has a religious zeal of 57%. So if this place were a majority Orthodox, the idea is the higher the zeal is, then the higher the piety that I want in the governor of this province. Because it needs to match that level of zeal of that province to essentially keep the population loyalty high enough. Now, I don't know if 57% is really high enough to matter in regards to population loyalty. That's part of the blanks that I don't have filled yet. I don't know when this really kicks in, and I also don't really know what's considered high for piety. Obviously not 0, but when does this really matter? What are the numbers, you know? And I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. So it's a little bit complicated. However, the fact that this is Catholic and I'm Orthodox, my understanding is that I should essentially go for a low piety governor. A low piety governor would not clash with this high zeal Catholic population. This is my understanding. Please correct me if I am wrong. Going back into the rest of these traits, dread is simple. Dread will just increase the level of loyalty in the province. That is it. The more they fear you, the more loyal they are. Command, this has to do with battlefield performance. That is it. For every star in command, for every star of command, you're going to be adding +1 valor to all of the troops that are within a 50-meter radius of your general on the battlefield. For every 2 stars of command, you'll be adding +1 valor to every soldier on the battlefield, regardless of how close they are to your general. So, if you have an odd number of stars, for instance, if you have a 3-star general, you'll be adding 1 point of valor for everyone on the battlefield, but then 3 points of valor for those that are closest to your general. So, that's how that works. Do I want to talk about valor? Like, what does that actually mean? I guess I can do that really quickly. Valor, for every point of valor that a unit has, valor is essentially experience. Think of it that way. In Shogun 1, it was called honor. In this game, it's called valor. For every point of valor, it's going to be adding +1 defense, +1 attack, and +2 morale. That's pretty big, isn't it? So if you have a 3-star general giving 3 +3 valor to all of the units that are within 50 meters of you, that's quite the difference, isn't it? So that's command. Acumen is another very simple one. It just has to do with how much money your province is going to be making. The more acumen the governor has, the more money that the province is going to be making. Pretty simple. These governors and generals can also start to get traits. In this case, he doesn't have any. If I look at my emperor, where is my emperor? He's right here in Anatolia. Check him out, Emperor Alexius I. He's 35 years old. He's married. You can tell that by this ring right here. And he is the man of royal blood, which you can tell by that crown. Instead of loyalty, because of course he's loyal to himself, he has influence because he is the faction leader. Influence is another one of those traits or stats that I'm a little bit unsure of. It's my understanding that the higher the influence of a faction leader, the more likely other factions will deal with you when it comes to having alliances and ceasefires. My other understanding of influence is that this does have to do with how loyal your generals are to you. So if you lowered the influence of another faction's leader, and there are ways to do that, then you can essentially cause a civil war in that faction because those generals will be losing their loyalty to that faction leader. Now, something that people talked about a lot on the forums way back in the day is that they think that either influence or command has to do with how good your offspring is going to be, how good your princes are going to be. And I don't know if that's true. Here's my guess. My guess is that the factions have a hard-coded amount of guys that are either good or bad. I think some factions just get better generals and better sons because historically they were known for that. The Byzantines, obviously, there's a lot of writing surrounding the Byzantines. You know, they were the most advanced culture of this time period. There's a lot. They had really old shit. They had a lot of books, so they had a lot of writing survived, from this emperor or this empire. And there's a lot that is known about the exploits of its generals, whereas other factions might not have that much written material left over, and we don't know as much about their exploits on an individual level as we do with the Byzantines. So I think the Byzantines just get better generals because the developers coded them that way. And I don't think that really has anything to do with the influence or command of the faction leader. That's my guess. I know that, for instance, generals and the heirs in Shogun 1 were hard-coded. And I mean generals, the individual generals, whether or not you were going to end up with a 1-star general, 2-star general, that all has to do with the historical accuracy, the authenticity of that faction. And they wanted to incorporate historical generals into that game. It's not random. The Takeda and Shogun 1 get better generals than other factions because they were known for having fantastic generals. And I think that in large part that is in this game. I know there are historical generals that do pop up in this game, and that of course is hard-coded, obviously. But my gut tells me that the faction heirs based on each faction really do depend on the history of that faction and the devs writing that into the game. Now, there is the thought that by having an active faction leader that's taking provinces and winning battles, that will lead to having better heirs. And that I might give way to. I might say, yeah, I'm on the fence. That might be true. That might be true. As someone that plays the Glorious Achievements mode all the time, there's certain sections of the game where I'm not advancing very often. And it does seem like my lineage, my royalty does seem like they get kind of crappy if I don't, take other provinces and win battles and stuff like that. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I was playing as the Almohads and the Aragonese, so I don't. Maybe historically they just didn't have that, or what? Well, I guess. Please let me know. Please let me know your thoughts on this. Back to what I was really getting at, though. if I want to save Naples, I want to find a governor, essentially, I'm guessing with as high dread as I can find, and probably low piety would be good as well. It does not have to be someone that's in this province. A governor of a province can be anywhere on this map, so let's go looking for him. How about Romanus Lascaris? He has 3 dread, he has 1 piety, and you know what? 2 acumen's not bad. Naples will be a rich province eventually because it does have 2 trade goods. Silk and olive oil will make me a lot of money once I do have a trade network set up. That's going to be a while. So this guy is not a bad shout. I think I can do even better though. This fella, Stephen Tismisis, 3 dread, 1 piety, 3 acumen. And he might be my guy. 5 loyalty, that's good enough, I would say. There's another fella that is a good shout. Isaac Palogiogos. 3 dread, 3 piety, and 4 acumen. So even better on the acumen front. The 3 piety though, if I'm right, considering, you know, the fact that this is a rather zealous province in a place that does not follow my religion, he might not be the right choice. So, going with Stephen Tismisis, that might be the right call. So 3 dread. Let's see how much that improves. We're at 70% loyalty now, and I want to make sure this is the right guy. It's going to be him. So I'm going to be adding 1 loyalty to him through that title. So now he is up to 6 loyalty. And now Naples is up to 85% on the loyalty front. That's pretty gosh darn good. In addition to that, I can make it even better by building a watchtower. It only takes 1 turn and it only costs 100 florins. This is going to boost the loyalty by, gosh, I want to say it's a bit. It's at least 20%. It might be more though. And I want to say that effects from the watchtower does get factored into the loyalty of this province before any rebellion calculations are made. I think so. I really do think so, but I'm not 100% on that. So that's going to be the play there. That's the best I can do to keep Naples. You know, assign a 3 dread governor, lower the taxes to very low, and build a watchtower on turn 1. And I can build a border fort on turn 2, which also only takes 1 turn and increases the loyalty by like another 5% or so. So that's going to be the play in Naples. After that, then I can start building a fort, which is the tier 1 castle. That takes 4 turns. And once that's finished, I can start training peasants that can further increase the loyalty of the province. And they can also try to, you know, garrison this province and make sure that no one else feels confident enough to attack it. Right now, I'm defending it with my 1 loyalty Byzantine infantrymen. Now, Byzantine infantry are a sword unit that are quite good in the early game. They do get outclassed statistically, eventually. They are a little bit worse than feudal men-at-arms, but they have 100 men in their unit as opposed to 60. Typically, sword units only have 60 men in their unit. So by outnumbering those other units by 40 men, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a chunky unit. That's a unit that's so chunky, so thick, that it can probably even take a few charges from heavy cavalry, which is typically not what you want your sword units to be doing. But with 100 men, they're going to do okay. So, Byzantine infantry, not bad. The fact he's a 1-star general, also, that's going to be adding some valor to himself and to these naphtha throwers. What the heck is a naphtha thrower? Naphtha is a fiery mixture of chemicals that is very difficult to put out. Contained in throwable grenades, ceramic pots, that burst open on contact. Naphtha is dangerous and it is possible for the thrower to set fire to himself rather than a target. So yes, these are medieval grenades. They're awesome. If you want to watch me use grenades, watch my Mongol invasion campaign where I play as the Mongols in the Shogun 1. That's really, really fun stuff. They are rather difficult to use. They need to be very close to the enemy to throw their grenades. And, you know, it's better if the enemy's not charging the naphtha throwers as well. And yes, they can blow themselves up. They can blow up friendlies, but they're kind of a wild card. They're fun. I like using naphtha throwers. They're really good. They're a unit that I might even keep in my mid and late game armies because, as that has been discussed already, the Byzantine army does start off quite strong. In fact, it's probably one of the strongest armies in the early game, but it does get outdated by the Western Catholic factions, and I mean, shit, the Muslim factions as well. The Turks and the Egyptians really do outclass the Byzantines as well in the late game. The Almohads not so much. The Almohads are kind of similar to the Byzantines in that they don't really have a strong late game army. So the naphtha throwers might be my unit that I really use to kind of like even things out, because it can really blow apart formations of heavy infantry. So, you know, if I feel like I can't match up against my enemy's heavy infantry, then I have a tool to deal with that. So that's going to be the play here in Naples. Build up some, watchtowers and border forts, a fort, and then peasants, and try to hold it that way. And that's it. Just hold. Eventually, I want to build up a trade network so that I can make money off of its trade resources, but that's going to be quite a ways down the line. Now, how about here in the Balkans? What do I want to do with this? Well, I have a rebel force here holding Serbia, and I do want to take Serbia right away. Now, I do have one unit of Byzantine infantry here in Greece, but that's probably not going to be enough to take Serbia by itself. So what I can do is I can send some units over to Greece to help hold this front line. I have another unit of Byzantine infantry. In fact, these units have an armor upgrade. You can tell that by this black shield icon at the bottom right of the unit panel or the unit card. And then these big daddies, the Varangian Guards. The Varangian Guards is part of the Imperial household, a force of mercenary bodyguards. They have a history of being tough, loyal, and resourceful men from the north. Over the centuries, their ranks have included Vikings and a Viking king, Saxons and Englishmen. Now, they are sometimes a ceremonial unit. So it's really interesting that I start the campaign with a unit of these, because I can't even train these guys until I get a little bit later into this campaign. I'm pretty sure they're not available until I get to the high period of this campaign. And then they're not available in the late period. So like I get the chance to train them, and then I lose that opportunity to train them. So it's really important that when I get that chance to train them, I train as many as I can, because they're really, really good. They're probably the best heavy infantry unit in the game. There's one other unit that might be as good, but it's close. They are two-handed axemen, armor piercing, really, really tough. They have a shield, but obviously they can't use it when they're using their axes and melee, but they will use that shield to defend themselves from arrow fire. So that is that. I will be using this force here to go and take Serbia. And however, though, and I made this mistake once, I need to be careful that I don't lose Greece to a sneaky little attack by the Italians. As you can see, the Italians do have some boats in the water, so they can attack from Venice through the Adriatic into Greece if I do leave Greece undefended. So it's going to be kind of tricky, but I want to make sure that I don't go to war with the Italians by leaving an opening there. What I can do is I can send these Trebizond archers, and this is another unit that I can talk about. Trebizond archer is a good archer unit. So to talk about a little bit about the archer units in this game that just use a regular bow, there's the basic archers, and then there's basically these other archers that use the same bow. Keep in mind that all of these archer units have the same range statistics, the same accuracy, the same amount of arrows, the same power of the bow. There is longbowmen, that's different. They do have an armor piercing bonus. And then there is crossbows and arbalesters, which is like an advanced crossbow. That's also different. But for every unit that uses this basic bow, all of their range stats are the same. So what differentiates them is typically their melee prowess, their morale, and their speed, and whether or not they have a small shield. Small shields give +1 defense in melee, and then also like +1 armor against range attacks. So it does make them better skirmishers and better in a melee. So what's the deal with Trebizond archers? Well, Trebizond archers are not faster than regular archers. They are just the same speed as a regular archer, but they have pretty good attack. Their defense, though, I think is the same as a regular archer, but the fact that they have a shield does compensate for that a little bit. All in all, this is a good unit, and when you buff it up and give it some upgrades, it can be a really competent melee unit, especially like a competent light melee infantry unit that obviously can shoot its bow, but can also like chase down, like enemy range stuff and kill the enemy ranged units, and it can flank and have a flanking charge onto a pinned unit of infantrymen that the enemy has. They're good. It's a versatile good unit. And would you know it? The province of Trebizond gives a +1 valor bonus to any Trebizond archers that are trained in Trebizond. Good shit. That's +1 defense, +1 attack, and +1 morale for every Trebizond archer trained here in Trebizond. Good stuff. The one bad thing about Trebizond archers is that they have really expensive upkeep. I wonder if that's going to show it here. Yeah, support cost is 52 florins. For comparison, a regular basic archer support cost is 37 florins, and even like crossbows have like 22 florin support cost. So like 52 is quite a bit. That's pretty gosh darn expensive. But again, Trebizond archers are also really easy to train because they're available from a boyar, which is a tier 1 building that you can build after you have the tier 1 castle, which is the fort. So it's really basic build requirements. It's really easy to get these guys and train them from Trebizond, and they will be a very important part of my early game army. I think, let's see, I can talk about them. Yeah, compound bows give these soldiers an advantage thanks to their range, accuracy, and penetrative power. Trebizond archers are well trained and disciplined and can act at a pinch as light infantry. Although they can melee, it would be a foolish commander who uses them to attack unbroken enemies. We'll see about that. And I don't think I read about the Byzantine infantry as well. The Byzantine Empire's military tradition dates back to Roman times, and its armies have always included professional soldiers. These men-at-arms have mail armor, large shields, and swords, and can be relied on to fight skillfully against most enemies. They are probably among the best heavy infantry in Eastern Europe. Yeah, it's probably true. But yeah, look at that support cost, 62 florins. That's a lot, but I'd say it's worth it. Is there any other units that's worth talking about? I do have basic spearmen. This is a huge weakness in the Byzantine army's army roster, is the fact that they only have access to basic spearmen. That is it. No upgraded spearmen. The Catholics can get field sergeants, chivalric sergeants, polearms. The Byzantines can't get polearms. They can't get halberdiers, chivalric foot knights, pikes. None of that shit. They just get basic spearmen. That's it. It's a weakness for sure. I'm not gonna try to understate that. That's a weakness. However, I gotta say, in the campaign that I played, they did okay. Put some upgrades on them and put them in the forest. They can hold off Mongol cavalry, So yeah, that's kind of what you want them for. You want them to hold off against cavalry, and what do? You upgrade them. And if it's true that the Byzantines will always have great generals, good. That's going to buff them as well. So honestly, they're okay, I think. And then Allen Mercenary Cavalry. I don't think... Okay, I'm not really familiar with this unit. The Allens are excellent steppe horsemen, almost as if they were born in the saddle. The Byzantines see them as the best light cavalry of mercenaries available. They can be used to skirmish, ambush, and act as a swift covering force for the flanks of heavier cavalry. So by the sounds of it, it's a really light cav. Light cav is good for chasing down skirmish units, foot skirmishers, and mounted skirmishers. They are typically faster than mounted skirmishers. A lot of times that's going to be the balance in this game. At least that's how it was in Shogun, is that obviously mounted skirmishers are very capable and very versatile, but they typically can get caught in a melee by a light cavalry, which is not focusing on shooting a bow. They're just charging down you and trying to get at you. So Allen Mercenary Cavalry, I don't know how to train those. I looked up the build requirements for most of my units, but I think that this must be just a mercenary unit. I mean, obviously it says that in the title, but I don't know if that means I can't train them and it's just a mercenary unit. Maybe that's what it is. That makes sense because this brings me to my next point. Trebizond does start off with an inn. What do inns let me do? Inns let me hire mercenaries. Cool, right? So mercenaries are really neat. Inns basically have a mercenary magnetism of +40. It's a magnetism of +40, and each tier of castle has a minus magnetism added into it. And I think these buildings, the town watch buildings, where are they? Do I not have a town watch building here? Ah, here it is, town watch. Yes, this is like a building that lets me build pretty basic infantry, like militia style infantry. And I'm pretty sure this also has a negative magnetism. The idea is that the more civilized your regions become, the less they attract mercenaries. So that's kind of the idea with that. It's really cool though, being able to attract mercenaries because you can hire them. They can be expensive, but you can hire them all on just one turn. Say if you open up a mercenary panel, I can't do it right now because it's not available. But if they were available, I'd be able to, there'd be like a recruitment panel like this, but here in Trebizond. And I'd open it up and there'd be a whole list of mercenaries that are available in the region. I could buy them all on that turn and I can move them on that turn. That's how powerful they are. They are an instant strike force. If there's an emergency and your lines got broken and you need a whole freaking army right away, mercenaries, go. They're great. And what you can do with them is that you can fill holes in your army roster. So for instance, if you're thinking, man, I would like some heavier spears, look for them in the mercenary pool. You can find them. There are spears available. That's really neat. Cool stuff. So I'm guessing that that's like what this signifies. I think this is just kind of like here because of that reason. I don't think this is a unit I can train, but I could be wrong. Moving on, let's see. We have Cataphractoi. Yeah, this is the real big daddy units of the Byzantine army. These are armored horsemen, and I mean armored. These guys are heavy. The fearsome, disciplined Cataphractoi trace their origins to Roman times. Both man and horse are so massively armored that they are almost unstoppable shock troops. This power comes at a price. The Cataphractoi are slow and expensive compared to other cavalry, but this is a little comfort to their enemies. They're good. They are good. I wouldn't say they're like, super good. For this early in the campaign, though, they are quite powerful. They have something that no other royal bodyguard unit in this game has, which is a full unit size, 41 men. Most bodyguard units are only 20 men. And I think that has to be a mistake made by Creative Assembly. Because because the other units for other factions are called Royal, God damn it. Royal Knights, that's what they're called. Yeah, Royal Knights or Ghulam bodyguards, for instance, for the Muslim factions. And I think they just forgot to write a royal version of the cataphracts. They could have wrote Royal Cataphracts, left it at 20 men, and that would have been it. But it's just this one unit of cataphracts. It's just this one type. So if you want to retrain this unit of cataphracts, you take it to a province that can train cataphracts and you retrain it back up to 41 men. It's pretty insane that you can get a 41-man unit of heavy cavalry this early in the game. It's crazy. The unit itself is also pretty gosh darn good. Obviously very heavily armored, really high charge. It is slow. It's not a unit that you want to be too fancy with. And typically what I want to do with my cataphracts is I use it to plug holes. I don't really want it to be ranging too far out ahead of my army because then I can get essentially removed from my support. I want it to stay relatively close to my infantry and use it to plug holes where it can fight side by side with its men. That seems to be the best instance for that. Also, considering that there's this to keep in mind, I will be fighting a lot of my campaign, the early part of the campaign, in the desert. The Turks and the Egyptians do inhabit the desert in this region, and the desert does inflict a penalty on units that come with heavy armor. They will fatigue quickly, and fatigue really matters. It really does diminish the fighting ability of the morale of your men. So having cataphracts with their heavy armor is not ideal at all. It's not good. However, there's no other real options for me when it comes to having cavalry at this early in the game. The units that I can train the fastest is horse archers. Horse archers are the basic horse archers in this game. They're fast. They are useful. They are really useful. I can tech up to them rather quickly. It just requires a fort and then a horse farmer. And that's the only building that I need to get them. So it takes 6 turns to tech up to them. That would be good, but that's not really something I can prioritize right now. And I think that simply focusing on Byzantine infantry and Trebizond archers, and then whatever cataphracts I can get from my royal family, I think will be enough to take out the Turks and possibly even the Egyptians. I guess we will have to see about that. So let's see. I still, man, this episode, goddamn. Oh dear, I'm looking at the timer and it's like, yeah, I know. So I still need to assign all of these titles to all of my governors, and I'm not going to talk through all of this. I will be doing this off camera so that I can save a little bit of time here. Now, this is something that I have noticed in my other practice playthroughs where I've set Naples up with a good governor and I was sitting at 85% loyalty, and then all I've done is assign a few more governors and then put my build orders in, things that I would think are not related at all to Naples, and yet somehow the loyalty here is dipped from 85% to 79%. And I'm not sure why this is happening. This is, as I mentioned, this is happening in my other practice campaigns as well, so this is a repeated thing, and I don't know what is going on. I'm really confused. What am I doing that's affecting Naples? I do not know what the answer to that is. So if you know what's going on here, I'd really be curious to know what's going on. Obviously, you're not going to have all the information because I cut out the parts where I assigned these governors, but assigning these governors should not have anything to do with Naples because it's just they're not the governor of Naples. I did that on camera so you could see. And the rest of them, what I did was I assigned the rest of my governors or my captains that had 4 acumen. I assigned them governor titles. For the rest of these provinces, I'm not going to assign them any governor until I do find a captain that has at least 4 acumen. I think that that's pretty prudent because it's going to be the best for my economy going forward. Now, what I can do is I can strip captains of their governorship, of any title really, and give it to someone else, but that will lower their loyalty. I can use my emissary to do that, but I don't really want to be worrying about that right now. So I'm going to hang on to these titles here, like in Trebizond and Georgia, Lesser Armenia, and the islands down here. However, in Constantinople, I still have this title left over. I've not assigned this to anyone. It grants +2 loyalty and +2 command. And yeah, this is my plan. I want to give it to this shithead over here, Romanus Carolarius, with 1 loyalty. 3 acumen honestly is not bad, but considering that I gave 4 acumen captains, lesser provinces, and Constantinople is my breadbasket, it's making me the most money. And look at these trade resources, silk and dyes and grain. And yet it's going to be this guy that gets it, because +2 loyalty, all the other titles just give +1 loyalty, but +2 is good. So I'm going to be giving it to this guy, making sure, there we go. And I feel like 3 loyalty is still not great. This man's loyalty is in serious question. Placing him in charge of a large army may not be wise, in case you end up having to fight that army in the not too distant future. Yeah, that doesn't make it sound good, but I think that 3 loyalty is on the cusp of being like okay-ish. And what can happen is if I get some builder traits for my emperor by, building a bunch of shit, he can eventually, one of those traits will give +1 loyalty to all generals. So fingers crossed that I can last that long here in Naples. Other than that though, I have pretty much just been putting in build orders. I have forts being built in Lesser Armenia, Georgia, Trebizond, and then I have watchtowers being built in the rest of my places. I also have forts being built in Greece and Bulgaria, watchtower being built in Naples, and then watchtowers, everywhere else. It's either a watchtower or a fort, depending on the how essential the defense of that province is. Now all that's left to do is to bring this attack into Rome. I think what I want to do is probably attack here. And yes, I do want to wage war against the Turks, so I will declare war against them. So I'll bring in all of my troops, my emperor, my 5-star emperor. In fact, I didn't look at his traits. He's an expert defender, so he will be getting +2 command when he defends. So he will go from a 5-star general to a 7-star general when he's a commander, or defender, so that's awesome. Now, I don't have any intel on the Turkish army here. So, Now, what I've been doing is I think I attacked with everything that I had from Anatolia and Trebizond into Rum. So I'll bring these two armies into here and essentially make them retreat into Armenia. And then I just siege out this fort before moving on. However, to ensure that they do not attack into Trebizond, I send down this force from Georgia to attack into Armenia just to hold them here. I don't intend to go through with this attack. I simply want to call off this attack. In Shogun, that was a very viable tactic in this game. It basically punishes you by calling your general's going to get a trait that says like he's hesitant or something like that. It's not good. It's like it gives minus morale for his army, which is awful. But in this case, considering that the general of this army is a Trebizond archer, I don't really intend on this being a leader for me down the line. I just want them to hold the Turkish Sultan in place while I attack Rum. That's really my only goal there. So now that I have my moves set, let's see, I want to bring Trebizond Archer over to Trebizond, and I want to move you this way as well. My goal, as I've mentioned, is to really push the east. I did move my two heavy infantry units to Greece so I can prepare for an attack on Serbia. I'd rather have my Varangian Guard on the west than the east because heavy infantry does not do well in the desert against horse archer factions. So he's going to be holding the line against the Catholics on the west. Naples is going to be just crossing their fingers and praying to hopefully the Catholic God, I suppose. And yeah, everything else. I can lower taxes here. And yeah, I just want to lower taxes. You know what's funny also is that like, even if you look at a place and say, hey, I have over 100% loyalty, it should be fine. It's better to be safe. Like, just go to very low. Like 123%, yeah, that's better. I will be sending my princess out to talk to the Hungarians to try to get an alliance with them because I do not intend to be at war with them. No, no, no. And I will be sending my emissary out to the east so that he can spy on these factions and provide some intel on their army rosters as I kind of go through with my blitz on this side. And is there anything else for me to do in this turn? I am just about to end my first turn in this campaign. So I will be making 1,200 florins during this end turn. And as far as my princes, I do have a Prince Alexius and a Prince Andronicus on the way. And then I do have two princesses as well. One's already of age, and then I have another one on the way as well. So that's going to be that. I think I'm ready to end this turn finally. Let's drop a save because this game is not very stable. So I do try to drop a save before every single end turn and also before every single battle as well. So without further ado, let's see what happens here. So yeah, this is going to be the fight in Armenia. This is my feigned attack. I have no spies on the enemy region, so I have no idea what the intel is, but you know, there's a 3-star Sultan. Now I know it's a Sultan Suleiman the First, and I have no intention of fighting this. So let's call off that attack. And the Turks have retreated from Rum. That was my suspicions. So I did conquer Rum, but there is still a garrison in the fort. I did destroy one facility, and I did pillage 100 florins. And I believe it's just going to take 2 turns to get rid of that garrison. Then, yeah, the watchtowers have been completed in these provinces. And then, oh, interesting. I thought that this is the guy that retreated from the battle. I thought he was going to get a bad trait because he retreated from the battle. But no, he's charitable. So he believes it is his duty to make some effort to help the poor. Plus unhappiness. Hey, that's not bad because he's a governor actually, so that's going to be adding plus unhappiness to whatever province he is the governor of. It looks like Naples did survive that turn. They're sitting at 84% loyalty. And now once I build this border fort, that will go even higher. So that's good stuff. And it's going to take 2 turns, I believe. Yeah. Anytime it says 1 year or like whatever the number is, it's always going to be 1 more year than that. So it's going to take 2 turns for this garrison to fall. Now I have fought the battle here where I've charged, this castle, this fort, and defeated the garrison. It's very costly, so I think it's better just to wait the 2 turns to starve out these 2 units. 1 unit of spearmen, 1 unit of horse archers, get rid of them, and then, yeah, without rum, the Turks do not have any ability to raise forces. Man, it is really tempting to assault the castle though, because in my experience, you do get a better chance of keeping some of the buildings inside if you assault the castle rather than starve out the garrison. So I will have to think about that. And yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for the first turn here in this campaign. Obviously, this video has already gone on a bit longer than I intended to, but that's typically how it goes with my campaigns. I can be a bit long-winded because I like to take the viewer with me and kind of explain some things to you all. So that's going to be it for this one. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and thank you very much for watching. This has been Conestep playing Medieval Total War. Thank you very much, and goodbye.